Go ahead now and open our NPC script. Again, we're going to have our default script loaded here, but we need to add a few variables before we can get into the nitty-gritty. So to start, let's go ahead and say private nav mesh agent. And you'll see a red line underlined on the variable type here. And that's totally normal. That's to be expected. Similar to what happened earlier with the text type that caused the same red underline, we need to include another namespace. So at the top, you'll press enter, type using Unity Engine.ai instead of UI. And that'll give us access to our NavMesh agent class. Next, what we want to do is say private animator anim, just like we did for our player. And then what we want to say is public destinations dest. That will hold that destinations game object that we just made. After that, we want to say private transform. Actually, we'll make it public. We'll say public transform array destinations. That's where the destinations we're actually using will be located. We also need an integer, so public int number of destinations. This will be important later when we need to figure out which destination we want to use, because the enemies will kind of move between them. Related to that, we also need one that represents our current destination. So we use a default value of 0 there because we want to start at the top of the array and then move through them. We're going to add a couple more variables. We won't get to use them in this video, but we'll get to them in one of the later steps. We need a private bool attack. We need a public integer damage. We're going to set that default value to 10. And I'm sure you can see where these variables are going. Our attack will determine if we're attacking. Our damage will be how much damage we can do to the player. We need a public float attack delay. And we'll set that equal to 1. And public bool can attack. And we want to give this a default value of true. And we'll go over what these last two means when we get to that step. Finally, in our start method here, between our curly brackets, what we need to do is add a couple of get components. So what we're going to say is agent equals to get component nav mesh agent. And again, make sure that's inside those pointed brackets. And then our open and close parentheses. We're also going to say anim is equal to get component animator, not animation, animator, and get our open and close parentheses. And then what we also want to do is say destinations, that transform array, we want to set that equal to dest.myDestination. So what that is that array that we get in awake on our destination script. And since we're calling this in start, we know that start will always happen after awake, which you can see it's in awake. This will always happen afterwards, so that means we'll always have our transforms in the array, which is important. We never want to assign values that we don't have access to yet. That'll throw errors, it'll break your code, and the script won't run. Finally, what we want to do is say number of destinations is equal to destinations.length. And then, of course, don't forget to save.